All right, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video and I'll go over the correct answers. So for the factoring, you're going to do a remove, replace, reduce. So you'll have x squared minus 9x minus 10. So then you're going to have 2x minus 10 and 2x plus 1. From there, you're going to have x minus 5 and 2x plus 1. So that'll be your answer. For the math knowledge question, we want to find b in terms of a. So first thing I'm going to do is add the square root of a to the right side. So I'll have b equals 4 square roots of a. And then we're looking for b. So we're going to square both sides of our equation. So that's going to be b. And then 4 squared is 16. And the square root of a squared is a. So b equals 16a. So that would be your answer. We're looking at lesson 31 today. We're dealing with the product rule. Hopefully after this lesson you'll understand the product rule. The derivative of a product of two functions equals the first function times the derivative of the second plus the second function times the derivative of the first. And you may be saying, what? I don't understand what you just said. So let's look at it in math terms. If you've got fg, two functions being multiplied together, that's product, and you want to take the derivative. You're going to take the first function and multiply it by the derivative of the second one. And then the second function, then multiply it by the derivative of the first. So that's what it's saying. Or if you want to drop the of x, fg prime plus f prime g. So you can pause the video real quick if y'all need to write those down. The mnemonic that the book gives is first d second plus second d first. And d stands for derivative. So first and then derivative of the second plus the second and derivative of the first. So if you like that mnemonic, you can use it. It's the sum. So if you have them switched, you still have the right answer because you're adding them together. So if you accidentally switch this term with this term, that's okay. All right, so let's look here. We want to find the derivative. So y prime is our derivative. So we're going to take our first function, which is x squared, and we're going to have our second function, which is sine of x. So the first function, we're just going to leave it as x squared, and we're going to multiply it by the derivative of sine. What is the derivative of sine? Cosine of x. And then you're going to take the derivative of the first function, which is 2x, and multiply it by the original of the second one. So that would be your answer. Okay, let's look at another one. We have x squared and e to the x, and we want to find the derivative. So our two functions are x squared and e to the x. So for the derivative, you're going to take the first one and just leave it as it is. And then what is the derivative of e to the x? E to the x. And then you're going to take the derivative of the first one, which is 2x, and you leave the e to the x as is. So that would be your derivative. Okay? Looking at another one. The way they write this is different, but they're wanting us to find the derivative of y. And they told us that y equals uv. U is ln of x and v is 2e to the x. So let's start by replacing y equals uv with what u and v are. So u is ln of x and v is 2e to the x. So those are your two functions. So if you think you can take the derivative of this by yourself, go ahead and do that. So the first one's going to stay as is, so ln of x, and then the derivative of 2e to the x, derivative of e to the x is still e to the x. So that stays as is. Plus, derivative of the first one, derivative of ln of x is 1 over x, and then you keep 2e to the x as is. And so that is your answer. Okay, looking at this next one. It's got two parts. It wants us to find the derivative of 1.2. So first we have to find the derivative. And then we'll deal with the 1.2 part in a second. So we have e to the x and we have cosine of x. So leave the original one for the first one, leave it as is. Derivative of cosine is negative sine. So I'll put the negative in front. Plus, derivative of e to the x is e to the x times the original of the second, which is cosine of x. So that's your derivative. From there, we're looking for the derivative of 1.2. So we're going to do negative e to the 1.2 sine of 1.2 plus e to the 1.2 and cosine of 1.2. So if you use your calculator, you're going to have negative e to the 1.2 sine to the 1.2 plus e to the 1.2 and cosine of 1.2. Should we be in radians or degrees for this? If you don't know, probably radians. Okay, so we're in radians. Hit enter, you get negative 1.8914. So that would be your answer. All right, so that's how those work. Let's look at this example. I want you to try and do this one all by yourself. So y'all pause the video real quick and then I'll go over it. So when we're looking for the derivative, this is a little bit different because this doesn't say derivative. ds is the differential. So we've got two functions, x squared and y cubed. So the original is x squared. The derivative of y cubed is 3y squared. Now which variable did we take the derivative of? We took the derivative of the y, so we need to put a dy because that's the derivative with respect to y. And then plus the derivative of x squared is 2x, and then we keep the y cubed as is, and so we need to put a dx because we took the derivative with respect to x. And so that is your differential ds. Okay, so y'all see how that works? So let's look at this one. Again, try and pause the video and see if you can do it by yourself. We're again looking for a differential dy. So we've got two functions, s squared and sine t. So dy, the original of the first, and then the derivative of sine is cosine. And which variable did we take the derivative of? We took the derivative with respect to t. And then plus the derivative of the first, so 2s times sine of t. And we took the derivative with respect to s. And so that would be your answer for that one. If you look in the book on page 171, they have a proof of the product rule. So if you're interested in looking at that, it continues on 172. We're not really going to deal with a bunch of proofs in calculus. However, if you take higher level calculus in college, you'll learn about the proofs. But I feel like that's a little bit above what we're supposed to be dealing with in calculus in high school. So if you're interested in it, it is in the book, but we're not going to go over them. Okay, so your homework is 1 through 25. Make sure to do those tonight so we can go over any questions you have tomorrow.